All right, go. I got some kind of weird warning. Make sure it's up because I got some kind of weird notification from YouTube. I just hit done to get it out of the way.
What are you looking at? I don't want this soup.
Oh my gosh.
You wouldn't like it.
Is it right?
Come on. That's not right.
I hate this thing.
Oops. Sorry about that, guys.
Here.
Is that crooked or?
It's not gonna be a big deal. I don't know why you have it so far over to the edge of the table. All right. Luckily, we have no viewers. Oh, we have 5 viewers. Crap. Hold on a second, guys.
Language, man.
Crap.
Yeah, what's your language?
Sorry, I forget he's got sensitive ears.
It escalates.
This is a little crooked. Un momento.
We're gonna share this out to some people so we can get as many questions answered at once as we can. Blacklist Games is live.
Are you putting this on Blacklist's page?
Are you sure you're on Blacklist page? Because I don't see a...
Look,
I don't see it. That's weird.
it says 7 people watching right now. It loaded for me.
Okay.
Are you subscribed?
Yes.
Because I went to my subscription.
To share it. Yeah, I don't see it on here for some reason. Maybe I'll just go to the Kickstarter comments and link it.
Congrats on the awesome day. Thank you, Wade. Appreciate it. Pardon me. Live.
Yeah, we're
Fish and
finishing
chips.
lunch. Figure we just have a little quick chat.
That's quite a busy morning.
Did you link it in the Kickstarter?
I haven't
comments?
gone in the comments yet.
Well,
So,
where did you link
so
it?
far, I've only put it on my personal page and Blacklist page.
Okay, there it is. Sorry, this is taking longer than it. This laptop takes a long time. Kicking on for some reason. Don't worry, we won't eat and talk.
I will.
Okay, there it is. Okay. I added it to the Kickstarter comments so they can join us. Oops.
202K.
I need to mute this. What the heck?
Mitch has a question. Will there be a Bury Bard? You know, I guess I can't say conclusively, but I will say I kind of like using the bard trope in different ways, because I know, like, obviously music's a big aspect of bards, but I also like bards as just like kind of this utility support character that uses charisma, not just through music. So I like exploring that stuff as well, even though, you know, I do like the charm of just you know, some bard playing music and inspiring allies through that. But my preference would be something maybe slightly different. Turn that on its head a little bit. But if there were, it would probably most likely be a Bury, yeah.
All right, I think I'm done sharing.
Better tweet that.
What's that?
I'm gonna give him a tweet.
Oh yeah, Twitter. I forgot people use Twitter.
I know the Frocks are bad guys, but any chance of a Frox hero? That's like not the first time we've got asked that, so obviously it's something that people are interested in. Yeah, I think it's totally possible. I don't know, because people have asked us like, oh, I just want a deck to go with like one of these figures because there's already figures, but I personally don't like the idea of limiting your threat options or your lurker options. You know, bulks.
Yeah, someone asked how to pronounce bulks.
Oh, yeah, bulks. Bulks. Like ball X bollocks. Not ball X, but bulks. It's supposed to be hard to pronounce because I just imagine some big guy with one of those like frog throats going bulks, bulks. What do you think about Michael Jackson? That's touchy, man. That's touchy these days. I'll just say there's some good hooks in Michael Jackson songs, but I won't go beyond the music. But yeah, going back to the Frox Hero, that's something I'd be interested in too. It's a tricky balance because we have kind of this lore set in place where there's not necessarily bad guys in this world or evil doers. It's more just, you know, different civilizations, different cultures, and everything. But the Frox are limited intelligence typically. They're smart enough to build simple things, but they're not, you know, they're not bright enough to create things beyond just survivalist constructs. So I get picky about the concept of a hero, like someone who's actually got a purpose doing something, as opposed to just, you know, someone hitting things with swords. So there's more depth to it than just, you know, making a deck for him or anything. So Michael Cox wants to know.
So ally cards. Ally cards are very similar to how they function in Brook City and Street Masters. They are a card you control in your play area, and typically they will have an exhaust effect where it's like once per turn. They have you know, like they can move and do something. So every ally does different things. Some quests, for example, there's a quest in the base game called The Rescue. And in that quest, your objective is to find a prisoner who's an ally and rescue him, get him to the altar, clear out the minions, and that's how you win. And he functions like an ally. Now, the nice thing about that kind of quest is in story mode, we could easily have some special named character ally that replaces the prisoner, and in that quest, you're going to rescue this specific person. And also, allies will be like an optional rule where if you're playing a quest, you think it's kind of hard, and you're having a challenge in it solo. For example, you know, you might, I'm playing a character that does a lot of damage, but it doesn't heal very well, so maybe I can take an ally to heal me. It's just a nice little way to adjust the difficulty to your own preference. Thanks for the congrats on the first day funding. Thank you. Very pleased with progress so far. I mean, blown away actually. Like every Kickstarter we've done with Blacklist has slowly done better and better, and this one is just a huge jump up from the last one we did. So it's very exciting. It's great to see our games getting out to more people, and we just want to keep making fun games. And so you guys give us the opportunity to do that. We appreciate it more than anything. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Wade, you have an interesting point because I'm also in the camp usually where like I want more characters to play as, but at the same time, like if you widen the pool out of the gate, it kind of creates like almost a lack of depth, like where there's there's less individuality amongst all these characters, and I know that can be different. It's from product to product, but with Stream Masters, we faced that dilemma where we released a lot right away. And it's cool. I mean, even as a player of the game, I love getting all those decks and trying them out and everything. But I still haven't like really explored all those fighter decks, even though we designed them. Like I still want to play through them and everything.
I think Justin knows what he's doing.
I know. I like it. So yeah, I think the steady pace of heroes. Like we still introduce more. Obviously, we want to widen the roster, but at a pace that's a little more comfortable than maybe we did with like Street Masters or Brook City. But we're all about having, varied choices. That's kind of why we built the system. So we want to kind of strike a balance between not too much, but enough where you can find your favorite character out of this, big roster of heroes.
And we do, like we said, we want to kind of build a foundation for this game. You might have mentioned this, but we want to start off with the solid foundation of lots of content, for everything, not just like tons and tons of heroes. So we want to have more of everything, and that includes more heroes. But we also want to make sure we have room to grow the game for years. We want to explore different areas of the world, different races, all that stuff. And also heroes are pretty impactful in the game, and they have a whole deck of cards unique to them, their own equipment.
It's a huge expense too. All that art is tons of unique art.
There's a lot of art too. So all the boring budget stuff, we're definitely working within a budget. We've not let it constrain our vision of the game, but it does determine how much we can do, how quickly, and how many products we can spread that over.
Yeah, Jimmy John's. But
one thing to note also about stretch goals, I'm not sure how many viewers we have, 28 or so, people from the Kickstarter who might not have been in any live streams we found on Facebook before. One thing to keep in mind with the stretch goals, for example, is we tried to design them out to get you as most content as possible over the course of a campaign, over what we expect to get, or what we hope to get in the campaign. So obviously some stretch goals might be more exciting than others, and some of them will help. Like for example, the threat deck, the Outlaw threat deck, that's a huge stretch goal. You guys that's like 12 miniatures, a deck of cards, and a divider. That's huge. But some of the other stretch goals have to help build that up and take some of the blow of that one stretch goal, because that little gap of 10,000 wouldn't cover all the costs for everything involved in that stretch goal for everybody's copy of the game. But we build it in a way where we get the most amount of content possible, and hopefully it's still exciting to see all these stretch goals popping up. But if you see something that's not as exciting for you, it's probably exciting for somebody else, and plus it's building up to something that you might find even more exciting. So
yeah, this is a product of Kickstarter. I was trying to save room for birthday cake tonight, or birthday pie my wife made, but I couldn't do anything this morning. I was just answering, emails and stuff, so I had to get some Jimmy John's for lunch. Not ideal, but oh well. I'm on a diet, guys. Where's my Warlock character? I don't know. Let's see.
is that King Bread?
Yeah. How many starting quests are there in the? I guess you mean in the base game. There's 6 in the base game.
Yes.
Very different experience quests.
Yes, and the thing about quest decks is, I mentioned this on the Kickstarter comments earlier, is we designed them to be as replayable as possible. So they always play differently, especially when you mix up different threats and different villains and features and all that stuff. But there's 6 decks in the base game, and there is a quest deck in the Runes of Arkansas expansion, as well as a story deck and a bunch of other little things. And we just, I don't know if we unlocked it or we revealed it today. There's a Pillaging the Vault quest deck.
I'm writing the description for that right now.
Yeah, we're getting close to that one. It's at 210,000, and we are at 203,000. So we're getting pretty close to that one. And those are pretty big, impactful additions to the game as well, because the quest is basically determines how the game is played. So every quest deck can play very differently from another quest deck. It's not just like, here's your objective. It's like it functions totally differently. So the cleansing, which you've seen before in the demo kit, it has this altar stone you're looking for, and when you find it, the longer it takes you to find it, the dirtier it is, the more corrupt it is. and you have to take it to the altar and cleanse it, and then you're able to kill the villain. That's just that one quest. Mini quests require you to find the altar, but for example, the rescue, which I mentioned earlier, every hero has their own objective, which is like, you know, distract the guards or, you know, go find this prison key. And once the heroes do those things, they can, and they find the prisoner, they have to take the prisoner to the altar, and they have to protect him, clear all the minions out, and so that's how you win that one. And it plays a lot differently than the cleansing. So every quest deck can change the game up a lot.
There's only one story deck in the base game. Will there see more in the stretch goal? So
Story decks are huge.
yeah, story decks they're not just a deck of cards that you play through like once and like, oh, okay, we play a story. The stories they come with a story guide. So the story guide, if anyone's familiar with like the really elaborate adventure game books or the most recently the Legacy of Dragonholt, the Fantasy Flight put out, where it's kind of a narrative adventure and you make choices and you do like non-combat encounters and combat encounters. That's what these story decks are essentially. The story decks are a deck of, for lack of a better word, they're not like a legacy deck, like a Pandemic Legacy, because you don't like rip them up or you don't like it's not like a one and done type thing. They're all ordered in a certain order, and the story guide will reference them. So you'll find things in the story deck. It'll say like, you know, grab card number 12, and you'll find some secret note that was written to you. You might only find that, you know, on a certain playthrough depending on what your choices are. So there's like these paths you can take in the stories, and it's all driven by the story guide. All the narrative stuff's in there, and each story deck is meant to be progressing the overall discovery of the world. So you'll, like we mentioned before, it's based in Aritica, this area of the world. It's kind of a small area, but when you zoom in, there's all these different regions, and each product's going to kind of focus on a different region. So in the first base game, it's going to be focusing on Luxon, which is nearest to Fiveholds. It's like on the borders of Aritica and Fiveholds, and Queen Valor's trying to kind of extend her claim into Aritica because it's kind of this lawless land right now since the evil count was dethroned. So yeah, there's not going to be like story decks unlocked individually as a stretch goal because they're kind of just too big. They're going to be.
We want them to be contained into a product that has things themed around it.
So whenever you buy an Altar Quest expansion, like for example Runes of Argynspire, you're buying a new piece of the world, and it's kind of like a new, just like a new adventure pack that adds new content for any of your games, but also continues on this, you know, overall story, which is essentially. I mentioned before to some people that we were starting this idea for a book, and it's more like kind of a novella, but it's kind of developed more into like a novel idea. But it tells the story that leads up to it's the events that lead up to the start of this game. So hopefully I can get that written someday, or put it in part of the compendium or something if we ever put that out. But that'll tell the story, kind of like the prequel of the story of this game. So you'll be expanding the story as we produce new products and everything. Right now, the stretch goals are focused more on just fleshing out the world that you're starting in, the area you're starting in, and then the new products that come into play will just keep exploring the world in different ways.
And one thing to note about how we envision expanding this product is we envision having, you know, the base game. We envision having campaign boxes like the Argynspire expansion, which the campaign box will have a story, new bits of everything basically. But we also imagine having like adventure packs, which would be a little bit of stuff, not a whole new story, but here's a way to add to your game, add your modularity and your options. So question here, the hero dice look amazing. Any chance of upgrading the altar dice to match, maybe different colors for the different sides? That's definitely not out of the question. I actually wanted to have different colored sides on the dice, but it was more expensive for sure. But we wanted to get as much stuff in the base game as we could to keep it affordable. However, if that's a highly demanded thing, we'll definitely look into maybe finding a way to do upgrade altar dice as a stretch goal maybe, because I think that would be cool. The altar dice are such a central part of the game. You use them in every game. You never need more altar dice unless you lose them or something, but you'll only use 5 in the game, so you don't need more. Like hero dice you can use more of because they explode and stuff. What are you willing to reveal about the werewolf hero? So we were chatting with Isaac about this, and we both were on the same page. We were all three on the same page about how we want that hero to function. Most heroes have twos in their stats, and then they have one that's a 3 and one that's a 1. So they have one thing they're really good at and one thing they're kind of bad at. That's kind of like a nice formula for our heroes. For the werewolf, Isaac wanted to do the elf version of the Lace and Pines. He would have 2 1s, so he'd have like 2 stats he's weak at. But when he shifted, he'll have 2 3s. So he's like his werewolf is like really fast and strong. Now his cards will affect when's the best time to do it, but Layson will be a weaker, not kind of squishy archer who likes to stay back. But when you switch into werewolf, he's going to want to jump into the fray. But you're gonna have to figure out the best. And he's gonna use like the altar dice to. He's gonna use the shadow dice to turn to a werewolf, and then the light die to move back.
Yeah, a little like flavor background is Laysons and Elvanhai, which is a race of people. Essentially, they're colloquial known as elves. So it's the elves of the world. People commonly call them elves because that's just kind of easier to flow off the tongue than Elvanhai, which is their race. And they're essentially descendants from this race of high elves. Essentially, they were from this sunken city, kind of like Atlantis, and they expanded their studies into magic too much, and they paid a price. So they've since over the years, they've kind of not really devolved, but they're just their overall philosophy and everything has been much more. I'm trying to think of the right word for it. It's more hedonistic. If you say they're more just focused on having a good time. So the elves of the world are a little more lighthearted. So Layson's, while he's a competent like archer, he's more just a kind of a explorer. He's not really looking for adventure, and he gets cursed with by Lunarin, which is this this entity, which is this religion's based around these werewolves that are kind of gifted and shift into their wolf form. So he's kind of trying to control that aspect. That's why mechanically he doesn't want to stay shifted too long or shift at the wrong time because it's going to hurt himself or hurt his friends. So that's going to play into a lot of his deck mechanics. That's kind of like a little thematic background on him.
It's a bad combination of running a Kickstarter and having a birthday on the same day as you get notifications like crazy. There was a
Hero Dice. What's the dungeon crawler adventure board game you played that has the most brain burn? I guess you could consider like Mage Knight adventure board game, and that brain burn was insane. And I kind of talked about that before. It's like I don't really I'm not a game critic. I just talk about what I want out of games. So I don't criticize games as in like they're doing this wrong. But the reason I don't always fully enjoy Mage Knight is because there's like so many decisions, and the decision points are piled up that at the end it almost doesn't matter if you're deciding A or B, because they're giving you like options A through G or A through F or whatever it is. So there's almost too many decisions that don't really impact the overall outcome. So that gets really brain burny, and it's fine. People love it because of that, and it makes you feel clever. But I think that's probably the most brain burn I've experienced in an adventure game.
played several games where the bard character is what?
Did you have an answer for that?
Oh no, I mean I'm pretty much I agree with that. If I don't have it,
Shadows burn stuff?
shoot that. I don't think that was brain burn in that. There's table burn.
Yeah.
I've played several games with bard characters that are most OP for some reason. I think it's because some people are overcompensating for bards that might have been back in the day. Bards might have been a little less powerful or desirable to play as, but I think
it's almost like a joke. It seems like where like, I'll make the bard super powerful, but at the same time, it's like, I mean, music's such a powerful force where people like to play up on that as like a metaphor. So yeah, it's understandable.
I'd love a backstory intro quest for every character that focuses on their strengths. It'd be kind of cool. We were talking about doing like a little story, like a little introductory guide for the game.
Well, also, for quest for
just like playing through, like remember how Hero Quest did it with like the elf?
Right, yeah. The and that could be like online content we could do, like just as kind of a PDF download. But the backs of the dividers, I won't like promise this, but it could be possible. Like the backs of the dividers will have a little backstory about the character, and it could even have like a little thing on the bottom saying like certain decks you combine to create like a little intro scenario for that character. It wouldn't have any, like, it might have a special rule where you start with different things or something. You might start with a certain hand of cards. That's not something I'm planning on doing, but it might be something we could add in there where it's just
I think it might be something we do like as a PDF because it could change pretty easily and like I don't know, like I feel
but
like
if you're playing Rowan and it says like, oh, you should here's a backstory, and if you want to play for this backstory, just set up these decks, So that's entirely possible, but we don't want to take away from the story experience because the story decks themselves really tell that story, tell a wider story. So in comparison, it might feel cheap, if we just have like a little side thing where it's, here's a little tiny nugget story. Some people might like that, but it might pale in comparison of like the overall story decks.
how many iterations of the board did you go through before deciding on the one you have? That's a funny story because that is actually the first iteration of the board I put together for our playtest, and it just stuck. And never reason to change it because
We had alterations.
the way
but,
the way
came
we
back to
designed the game, all you need is a number of rooms. It doesn't matter, like like roughly similar size and shape and stuff like that, and enough doors to connect them all. So anybody could custom make their own board for Hero Quest or for Alter Quest. Gotta think about Hero Quest, but anybody can make their custom board for Alter Quest. You could even use like generic D&D tiles if you wanted to build your own custom board. The game would support that. But when we were playtesting and designing Brook City, it definitely got me thinking about the dungeon board that I wanted to do, and I kind of was working on that in the back of my head while we were designing Brook City. So it's kind of like I had a head start, but that first design was pretty much what you see now. It was black and white on a grid. I think we might have had a couple pictures online of us playing the first prototype of Alter Quest, and that was the first printout, and we just sent it to Hennig and said, "Paint this up. We like this." So, is there any? Oh wait, I skipped some. Happy birthday, thank you, Cador. Cador, is it Cador? Cador.
Get over. I don't know.
A bard that played similar to the hunting horn from Monster Hunter would be awesome. Maybe I have to. I know you've talked about Monster Hunter before, but I haven't played it. So.
It's like that.
But you might see something similar to that.
I mean, yeah. You always say these archetypes, but it won't be like it won't be like our take on a Night King because I don't like to take other people's characters, inspirations.
Is there any chance you guys will be releasing templates of the different cards for fan created? That's definitely something we can do. We've wanted to do it for Street Masters ever since it released, but things keep holding up our graphic design bandwidth.
Yeah.
But if we end up ever being able to hire a graphic designer full time on Blacklist, which is a goal of ours, that would definitely be something we would do. But I think with Alter Quest is even more of a priority for me because I feel like it's a game that's begging for custom content. Like you make your own quests. It's such an easy game to want to design your own quests for. Is there?
So you thought about
Happy birthday! Thanks for the birthday wishes. Congratulations on non-traditional enemies.
You thought about making smaller...
Yeah, we've had comments about the enemy thing. Some people wanted the traditional like orcs and goblins, and I can appreciate that. I will never not play a game because of traditional fantasy races because I always like that kind of stuff. But when we have a chance to make our own, like we have some cool ideas for enemies. And
I'm at a loss because I've seen people. I use Facebook groups a lot to kind of just answer questions and stuff, and I see a lot of criticisms and comments saying they don't understand why
Goatmen.
Yeah, they don't understand why we don't use like goblins and orcs, and to me it's like everyone has plenty of those, right? I mean, I can't like Adam said, I'm not turned off by that if I see it. But if given the chance, I would do something different because even in my collection, I have tons of orcs and goblins and traditional things. So I'm confused why that's a desire to have more of that as opposed to something new. It's I don't know, it's confusing to me. Maybe everyone has their own tastes, but
especially when you're going through the trouble of like getting paying a bunch of money for new sculpts and new art and all this stuff, you kind of had your chance to create things that you haven't seen before, like things you want to see, you want to visualize, things you've thought about, written about. And I mean, I think if anybody had their opportunity to do that as a gamer, I think you might want to create some things that you've always wanted to see that you haven't had a chance to play. So that's kind of our thinking on that. It's just a desire to create. So
what about difficulty of the game? I played Street Masters, my best game, but some stories are very, very difficult, most impossible to win. What about Alter Quest?
So one of the early problems with Alter Quest and playtesting was it was too easy. We wanted to make the focus of the game to be the adventure. Like people play dungeon crawls, and typically you want to get to the end of the adventure, even if you lose at the boss or whatever, like the objective room you lose, you still want to get there because it's kind of a bummer when you just get into the third room and die and the game's over. So it's a delicate line to balance, but people still, in a cooperative game, they want that challenge. So what we tried with Alter Quest was present challenging decisions that you can overcome, but you have lots of options to do it. And there's always a threat of failure, but it's not like Street Masters where you can get beaten down really easily because it's just a no holds barred street fight. In this, we want players to progress. It's not. I don't think it's possible to die in the first room of Alter Quest. I mean, I guess it is if you just sit there and do nothing and let the villain just pound you. But you have a really strong chance to overcome your odds. You have a lot of tools. Hero is very powerful. You just have to know how to use your deck, how to use your the altar pool to your advantage. I would not say it's more difficult than Street Masters, but what were you going to say?
I was actually going to answer the question above that I missed. But yeah, there's a lot of customization options. But I saw that one question that we accidentally passed over. We thought about making smaller story decks closer to Street Masters with the deck combinations and backstory. So that we talked about that a little bit earlier, but I think the main direction taken with this one was more comprehensive story, more kind of more elaborate story. So because of that, it almost it would feel, I think, off if we included smaller kind of just piecemeal stories, because that's kind of exclusive to Street Masters, which I like. I like that system. I think it works well. But with this game, because it has a big world to build from scratch, and we want to progress that storyline and tell an overall story through these various encounters and quests, we just chose to go this route instead. That's not to say we can't do that, what you're suggesting in the future, but for now we're focusing on that because it's a much more exhausting process too. So we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. We want to focus on making a really good story.
The Ottoman, the Frocks. I love the Frocks. I love the Frocks too. The Ottoman got a lot of love on Facebook. I actually wish we would have thought of that earlier because I think otters are probably my favorite animals. So Ottoman, but I wouldn't want to slaughter them. I don't want to slaughter otters. I'd rather have Ottoman allies.
Only traditional thing I want in the game is a dragon villain with the deck ultra hard mode. So
dragons we want.
Well, first off, dragons in this world don't exist, which is not necessarily true. Nobody knows about them. Nobody knows if they exist. They are like a legend thing. So if we did a dragon, it'd probably be somewhere down the line. But that's not to say we wouldn't do other like giant creatures. Because we talked about it last time on our stream, we would probably have like a separate encounter board for like a boss fight like that with a bigger miniature. But
yeah, we could imagine like an expansion, like a raid expansion, where it's like, oh, here's a giant, big boss fight that you're playing this campaign up to get to this fight, and there's also a way to just play it, like a little duel thing.
Yeah, dragons aren't off the table, but it's probably something further down the line. So
appreciate you guys are sticking with your vision rather than catering to the normal fantasy types. Yeah, it's a difficult decision because it's not like we're making games to just make a ton of money, but we do want to appeal to more gamers that can check out our other games. And fantasy is definitely the way to do that because it reaches across to a wide spectrum of people. Like lots of people love fantasy for different reasons. So it's just a good way to reach people.
So here's a good question from Rich. You make it look too easy on your playthrough. Is that because you know the game? There's several reasons for this. So yes, we know the game very well. We know the decks very well, so we know optimally what to do. We try to not do optimal stuff all the time. We try to show examples, but I mean, at the same time, our playthrough, we were two hits from dying each time. Both of us, we were so close to dying.
It might have looked easy to win because we defeated bulks real quickly. But one thing to note in this game is that there's only 2 quests in the core game that rely on you defeating the villain to win.
And this is this is going to be marked as kind of the easiest quest in the game.
Yeah.
This combination of decks with first of all experienced players, but also the bulks, Frogs. These are kind of more entry level enemies, and the customization of this game, the combinations you can do with decks, you can make the game super hard if you want to. You can make this optimal challenge if you want.
There are enemy upgrades in the box that are used in the campaign, and if you want to make a hard game, you just throw some of those in your game, and bam, you got a harder game. But also, going off the quest thing, typically in a quest when you defeat a villain, it escalates the quest where if you go through the villain deck, the villain spawns, you defeat the villain, then every villain turn, since there's no cards to draw and no villain to activate, you're just drawing threats every turn because the minions are pouring out because you killed their master. That's just the typical thing, so you're escalating the difficulty. So villains are kind of just there as like a bigger obstacle. There's the little minions to stop you, threat deck. But then the villain comes out and I'm really gonna stop you. And if you beat him, then all of a sudden you're getting overwhelmed. So you want to finish your quest. And there's also quests like the Showdown where the focus is defeating the villain, and the villain is increasing difficulty. That's kind of what the whole how the villain works in the game. But yeah, the demo kit is not a good barometer for the difficulty of the game.
So Viserys, great name, asks, how expansive is the campaign mode? Do you have branching paths implemented, or is it completely a linear path always? So there's two types of campaign. Campaign play, just broadly, it just is linking any of your games together. You can create whatever games you want, link them together, retain your upgrade cards, and get new equipment cards. The rules are in the game for that. Story mode is different, where story is driven by a very structured story. There are multiple paths, but it is a somewhat linear story because it's telling a story from point A to point B. There's just a lot of different decision points, and also the win-loss of each quest will depend on different cards get added to the journal, different cards get taken away, allies might become rivals might become allies. There's all kinds of different things that can happen within a story. So we're trying to make those stories meaningful enough where you'll probably want to explore them more than once, probably several times, just to see where different paths take you. The base game one is meant to be a little more introductory, where you're kind of learning how this campaign system works, how the story mode works. But then for every product after that, we can just do whatever we want with the story mode. And for example, like we're doing with Runes of Arkenspire, we're gonna have like hidden content where you have to play through the story to unlock these things in the game to add them to your collection. So that's something we want to explore too. And plus, we could add a whole other mechanic where we could add like a town mini game where you're trying to like defend a town or something. That's part of the campaign. So all these stories can add just whatever we want, and that's the beauty of the modular deck system, is that all you need to rely on is a deck of cards to add new rules and everything.
All right, this covers this next question too, the campaign mode plan. There is a campaign mode in the game. There's two modes. There's campaign mode, which is like build your own campaign, chain some quests together, and just play. The second mode is story mode, where you're playing a specific narrative story with branching like narrative and such.
Yeah, Wade, there is somewhat of a
Before you get into that, there's two questions here. There's one is begging for a Beastmaster character. I know, but then it's also tied to this: any chance for a necromancer hero that lets skeletons do his work. We definitely have thought of a hero with an ally, like a pet ally. That's definitely something we want to do.
So for someone new to your games, what's the elevator pitch for your modular deck system? It's more of a product model that lets you create a sandbox experience. So depending on what the theme is, the overall pitch is no deck building, shuffle up decks, whatever combinations you want, and play the game you want to play. Lots of versatility, lots of modularity, and lets you kind of customize your experience. But it combines the beauty of intricate card gameplay, tactical miniatures, without the need of deck building and all kinds of card sorting, stuff like that.
We don't reach funding to get all stretch goals. Any chance for a paid add-on with the stuff we didn't unlock? Probably not, but I mean,
because we can't ever print unless we know quantities.
Yeah, we need to have the funding.
That's the tricky part.
But of course we all hope we hit all the stretch goals planned. We have a lot planned, but with the way things are going, it's definitely possible we hit them all. But if we don't, we definitely have plans for them. And if we end up like, stretch, we always try to plan for a nice package funding. So we don't like to leave things partially unlocked or whatever. If there's something that's like, it goes so well with the other stretch goal we didn't hit, we'll take care of that. We'll make sure that whatever we end on is going to please not only us but you as well. We should stick around. Work call, yeah, work calls. I get that. Thank you for stopping by, and thanks for the birthday wishes. Will enemies and heroes and quests have completely different difficulty ratings to help us know where to start? We've talked about this because we introduced that in Street Masters from players' request. In Alter Quest, I don't know.
I have a good response to this because it's kind of tricky, because in Street Masters it's much more of a puzzle game. You're doing a straight combat. It can be very puzzling and tactical. There's a lot more dependent on the combinations in Alter Quest, where certain quests might be really, really hard with a certain threat type. The overall quest complexity could be rated, but I feel like it would be harder to give it an accurate rating based on these different combinations. And it's not necessarily unique to Alter Quest. I just think it's more.
Well, even Street Masters, I feel like those ratings, some of those weren't.
Some of them can feel arbitrary. I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you, because a lot of them depend on combinations.
Some fighters are just easier to play in certain combinations,
But I will probably push on to have on the dividers. I will push to have at least maybe like a 3-star system, like 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, instead of like the 1 through 5. Because Street Masters, the 1 through 5 almost felt a little too much granularity because the complexity, we try to keep almost all decks like on the less complex side, even though some kind of lean more toward the advanced players. But we might introduce a new rating system where it's just like kind of a 3-star system. That'd probably be the best of both worlds. So, all right. Will there be a story mode for Goatman and Otterman? Yeah. So we mentioned story mode before. Story decks are going to be in the boxed products. So the base game will have a story deck. The Ruins of Arkansas will have a story deck. You can play any of the rest of the content as campaign, whatever combination you want. Tell your own stories. We might do like fan supported content, community content will help people. People can submit stories.
That's a joke though. Goatman and Otterman.
Oh, I didn't see the bottom part. But if it could be a legitimate question.
I would prefer no spoilers for Ruins of Arkansas. We definitely won't spoil what we want to hide away. The threats in the game, I'm pretty sure we're going to show those because those are not going to be hidden. Those are going to be something that you can play right out of the gate because they're just going to be used in quests. So we will probably show those in an update along with some more details about the expansion. But we want to keep some things a surprise, and unless there's a huge revolt against that, we're going to try to stick to that. Where did I go? We get a non-animal enemies. Yeah,
the outlaws.
The outlaws.
The outlaws are not animals.
But we do. I'm trying to think of what else we have planned. We have so many things. Yes, there's more. There's more non-animals.
I will say most of the threats are.
We like anthropomorphic.
Yeah, a lot of the threats are creatures. There are a lot more because that like the world, like we're always in the world building. A lot of the
Thanks, Dr. Bandage.
a lot of the more bestial civilizations are more aggressive and hostile. So they're just naturally going to be a lot more of the threats because they're the ones that are drawn to altars. And this goes into the thematic thing also. It's very driven by altars in the world, Alter Quest, obviously. So when you go into a dungeon, a cavern, whatever it is that has an altar, there's going to be tons of these, maybe a little on the lower IQ end of these races that worship all kinds of different symbologies in the world, and they'll be drawn to these altars for the power they show and everything. So they'll be worshiping them mindlessly. So that is just a natural thing that a lot of the threats are going to be. But we have the outlaws. They're profiteers. They just know there's a lot of riches with altars wherever there are. They're just everything's drawn to these altars. So.
Do you have a game board plan with outside terrain?
Encounters
are going to be all kinds of terrain. That being said, the nice thing about Alter Quest is that main game board, we can replace it with anything. Like it can be a city, it can be ruins, it can be a jungle, whatever. But the only weird thing is we have these features that we want to kind of make sense of where they are. So it's kind of weird to be in a forest clearing and there's a bookshelf or there's I think that's probably the weirdest one, like a bookshelf.
Well, there could be all
a weapon
kinds.
rack sitting around in the forest.
Yeah,
but that's not to say we wouldn't figure out a way to do it. Maybe we would do like someday have an outdoor expansion for Alter Quest that's just like here's a bunch of new features and stuff. There's just for this forest board. Boards are definitely gonna be outdoor things like campsite maybe.
I'm not sure. Dr. Bandage says a 3-star collect system. You say it sounds familiar. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
what
we just talked about that one. Yeah.
Well, I think he's saying it's
less
familiar.
okay.
I don't really know what that's referencing. So
we add more
unless it's something he used in his. Did he have those on his BGG page post?
Probably.
Okay, that might have been it. Yeah.
That sounds familiar.
If so, I'll we'll know who to go to for some rating.
Dr. Bandage, you always kill it on keeping up with the BGG posts. You are good at helping out people with questions and such. Really appreciate it.
More neoprene mats for other boards, probably.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see if that comes up.
Hi guys, do you plan to introduce the possibility to get through the tunnel to reach the far end of the room? That's a good idea. So yeah, like we
Yeah, we
always
mentioned
say,
this. We mentioned this.
quests can do
yesterday.
anything.
Yeah, we can easily do that with the quest deck. The secret tunnel. There's quest decks that like block off rooms. Oh, it's a cave in. These rooms are all blocked, so you have to find your way around, or you just do a strength test and move boulders.
So will the game come with some kind of insert solution, storage solution, and if so, will it fit sleeved cards? Unfortunately, as much as I'd hate to say no, we have to say yes because we have to accommodate sleeved cards. I just hate sleeves, so I'm a sleevist. But yeah, well, we always try to accommodate sleeved cards because we know it's always a common request.
Is the neoprene playmat the same size as the one in Brook City? No, it's not going to have the card slots on top, so it's going to be just the board because we kind of wanted it for Alter Quest. We liked having card slots, but in Brook City it made the mat extremely big.
Yeah.
So it's limiting people's use of it on certain tables because they normally could put decks wherever they want. And on Alter Quest, we kind of wanted that freedom to put your decks wherever you wanted, according to how many players you're playing, things like that. So just the size of the board as the mat. Hero Quest characters have different abilities. Does AQ characters have different abilities? Yes, their deck is their ability. So that's the beautiful thing about modular deck system is the heroes are their deck. Like for example, if you're playing Hero Quest, you have your little character board that tells you how many dice you roll when you attack, and move stuff like that. But that's about it. Like that's all, and they have a weapon. That's the character. The wizard had some spells, so he had some cards to play, which the wizard always felt like he had so much more cooler things to do because he had these cards. Well, on Alter Quest, every hero has a whole deck of cards unique to them with special abilities. Like for example, the Cedrin, he's like a cleric priest type character. He's got a bunch of prayers in his deck, and he has ways to call back prayers and meditate and get more prayers back or draw the prayer he wants. And the alternate is true with Quella. She's the Harpy Mage in the base game. She's got spells, but all characters have a deck of cards with special abilities that's unique to them. Makes you feel cool, and that's why heroes are such a big deal in the game. I mean, it's not like Zombicide. When in Zombicide, it's a good example of a game where there's tons of heroes to play as. It's just a board with 4 skills on it or whatever. It's really easy to just make like 100 heroes, in a day. In Alter Quest, it takes a while to make hero decks, and it takes a while to test them, make them balanced. If we had any playtesters that are watching, they could vouch for how many different versions of hero decks they've gone through, or fighter decks and Street Masters. It's a lot of work. So heroes are a lot of work. Got your back, guys. Thank you, Dr. Bandage. You're awesome. What I really like is that everyone can heal and there's no dedicated healer. That's a real problem in Myth, for example. You always have to take the healer in your party. Yes, Cedrin is just like the best healer, but I believe the only character... Everybody can heal with supplies, which is nice. But every hero in the base game also has some ways to recover damage in their deck, except for Quella. Quella is the squishiest character because she can just blow things up so easily. That's her balancing mechanic there.
This is funny. This guy, Mark says, I like the sound of decks. In Hero Quest, the wizard seemed cool. The coolest because he had spells. That's actually probably one of the biggest inspirations for what I like in games, because when I started to get into games, I always reflected back on what I liked. And you'll notice in all our game designs, characters always have their own decks. And I've harped on this before. If anybody has watched our live streams before, I just love having a deck of cards. Usually a fixed deck. I don't want to do deck building. I just want to have a list of variety of options in my hand. And I remember vividly, I played as the wizard a lot as a kid, even though I usually didn't like spellcasters, but I wanted to have those cards. I like having cards to choose from. So that probably has a lot to do with why I want to design the games we design today. So.
How important is the equipment for the character compared to its deck? So the equipment, each hero has their own equipment. Normally it's like a weapon, something to attack with, and then something that kind of unique to that character. Like for example, Cedrin has a holy symbol, Rowan has a trapper's rope, Quella has some scrolls, but it kind of defines what they can do. Like a little thing they can. It's like kind of like a special ability that hero starts with. Now, in the campaign, most weapons are universal in the way they just do damage to enemies. They have little other rune effects they can do, but they're attacking enemies. So when you're playing a campaign and you find new equipment, like replacing your weapon is normally you're looking for one that's like, if you find one that uses your best stat, that's the one you want to go with usually. But the trinkets and offhand stuff like that, those can kind of customize how you want to kit your hero out. But the the starting equipment for the heroes are nice because it's kind of like tailor made for them. It's like what they pack when they go adventuring. This is kind of their collected equipment that they've earned over their years of adventuring, and this is what they're going into the dungeon with. And we've always liked it. We like for us personally, we love the idea of playing adventure games with like your character. Like you're equipped with what you would take into a dungeon, and that's what you have. Like that's what you have. You have to make use of what you bring to the dungeon, instead of games like the flip, the opposite end of the court is like Diablo, where you're just like finding a new leather shirt every 5 seconds, and you have to compare it to what you have before. It's just that's not really as cool to us as like we want to focus more on like a adventure storytelling thing. And if you find little things like potions and stuff to help you out, that's cool. But the equipment, you can get new equipment in the game, but it's definitely not the focus of the game. The character starting equipment is pretty unique to that character, and it feels cool in our minds. So.
We know the names of the other quests and altars in the base game.
You passed them here.
Oh, do we ever do in 10 years a game system that lets you use all the elements?
Passed that one. Great job on the painting, Adam.
Oh, yeah, that was important.
As a new painter, can you offer any tips and color guide? Thank you very much. I've been painting since I was like, I don't know, when did we get into Warhammer? When we were 15?
18? No,
16?
we were like, it was late in high school. It was
It was 6.
I remember it was when Josh Ungersmo was in restraint.
I was 16 years old when I went to the game store.
16
I
or
got
17.
16 years old. Got into
I think
Warhammer. So
17.
30 years now. Today, it's been 30 years. So it's been
20 years.
20 years. That's what I meant. Yeah, 20 years. My math is falling apart in my old age.
We don't do games with the math.
But yeah, tips. My tips are there's lots of cool tutorial videos out there, like especially with Warhammer TV. That's a great place to find some cool painting tutorials. But use ink wash. That's the biggest thing. Is just practice, paint miniatures for fun. Use ink wash to get those nice shadows, and dry brushing to pop those details on top. But yeah, painting's fun. Throw on Netflix or whatever your streaming service choice is, and just paint some miniatures in your evening. It's a great way to relax.
Will you ever do in 10 years or so a game system that uses all of your elements of your MDS games? I know.
Nah, we're not gonna mash them together.
One of the major things is we always want to design things we want to play, and there's no way I'd ever want to have like multiple collections of things I have to pull from to make it now.
We also like to keep our games, like each MDS game, feeling distinct in a different way, and I think we've been doing a good job with that so far.
Names of the other altars and quests in the base game. For the quests, we have the cleansing, we have the escape, the rescue.
Did you skip the
GRL?
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I started with, I think, so last. So we got the cleansing, we got the rescue, we got the escape, we got the
hunt,
the
search.
and then the search, and then the sixth one is.
I don't even know what you said, but I'll do them. There's the
rescue,
cleansing,
the rescue,
the search, the hunt, the showdown.
The showdown is what I missed. So the other altars we have
the unstable altar, the quaking altar, the drowned altar, the storm altar, or the altar of storms. I forget which. It's the storm altar, and the blinding altar, and the what's the element I'm missing? The burning altar. I don't know if I said that. That's 6, right? Yeah.
you're holding up 5 figures.
I was holding up 6.
Ugh. It's late. It's a lag.
Since
everyone
not
paints.
Wait, any chance to buy the map? We can buy the map on the Kickstarter page.
Oh.
We're gonna put it in the game.
Not sure what the cost would be on that, but we can. I mean, if it's highly requested, we can look into it because I would love to have it. I love that map.
Since not everyone paints, is there a chance to molding color for the minis features rather than light gray? Light gray is the best for just consistency. The nice thing about if you don't want to paint, it's really easy to just go to have some primer and just prime. Like for example, if you want all your features to be brown or whatever, you just prime them all brown, and then it takes 5 minutes, but it works well. I've done that before with games where I just want, like for example, if I play war games and I don't want to paint a whole army, I just paint my whole army blue and his whole army's red, and then we can see our different miniatures, like see which side is which. But we're still figuring out that, but it's more than likely going to be all the same color because it's more efficient to manufacture, and we're all about giving you guys more content as opposed to making things more expensive on the production side, so we have to make less stuff. So it's a difficult decision, but we'll definitely consider it.
So someone asks where the male vampire character is. How many? So male vampire. We try to do a good balance. I'll just say that. So keep an eye out. the level up cards we're talking about. So each character has 8 unique cards in their deck, not including the equipment. 8 outside of the equipment. The upgrades, there's 8 upgrades, one for each of those cards. So you're gonna upgrade one copy of each of those cards, just like how it is in Street Masters. And then outside of that, the equipment is separate. There's gonna be an equipment deck you can get equipment cards from. And there's other in the story. The story is totally different because the story will always manage your power level through the story deck. You'll get new cards, not added to your deck necessarily, but new like cards that might go in your control area or your threat area, stuff like that. So there's a whole lot of ways we can mess with the whole leveling up thing. Do heroes have different ways to build them? Can you make Saturn a full hero build? No, the hero the cool thing about the unique hero decks and the fact that you're playing as these unique characters is they just have a very specific skill set based on their cards. Now their skills within the game are flexible because they all have to be reliable in a solo game. Because every hero we design is going to be able to be a viable solo hero. There's no rules where it's like, okay, well this guy's only good if you have another guy with you. Everyone can get through a quest somehow using some of the cards in their deck. So there's no no specific roles like that. But
that being said, the different equipment you get through the campaign can make your hero play a little differently and have you can find a ring of strength where all of a sudden you're much better at strength than you were before. Ring of might.
The heroes each have their own role. We just mentioned that. So sort of.
They have an identity.
Yeah.
Not like if you're playing multiplayer, you will find yourself in a role, but you're not locked into that. Like for example, Cedrin is a really good healer, but he has ways to kill monsters for just as much as he's got cool search card. He's got things that he can do aside from just the healer. But he is really good at healing.
So any chance of a full-fledged campaign storybook in the future? Yes, it's the present. It's going to be in the base game. Every product, every box expansion is going to have a storybook in it, so it'll have a campaign in the storybook.
That's not to say we won't do more elaborate things in the future.
Yeah. The system will support
grow it, so.
Whatever we want to do with it. But yeah, right now planned it's going to be a story. And when we say like a story deck, a story guide, these story guides are going to be hefty. So any chance of an add-on for extra altar dice? We've heard that requested. There's absolutely no need for them unless you just really, really want them extra. Because
if it is a hot demand, maybe, but you never need more.
We figured we wouldn't sell very many because all you ever have is one altar pool of those 5 dice, and it's limited in the game. So even if you had multiple sets, you wouldn't be able to use them because you only ever use those 5 dice. So the story Bible. That could be ready by the end of this development cycle. Depending on how much time I get to work on it, but it's pretty comprehensive so far, and I enjoy writing that stuff. It's just part of me almost wants to see how the delivery of this goes and how we could do a reprint and then an expansion and maybe include it in that because it might be a better fit for it. Because right out of the gate we just want to make sure the game hits the audience it needs to hit and everything. So. If the altars are visually different in the card art, is it possible to buy an add-on with more altars to paint them to match? Do we have different art on
No, not right now.
Yeah,
not currently.
So the art right now in the base game is
so the altars in the base game, they're slightly different.
Yeah, they're the iconic,
primitive altars.
They're the iconic altar because altars can take many forms, but in the since you're playing this introductory in the base game, you're starting in Luxon. It's kind of on the outskirts of where these altars started emerging. So you're seeing a lot of these kind of like almost minor altars, and these altars can have different properties to them, but they're probably going to look pretty similar because they're essentially just these rocks burst up from the ground. Now, some of the more elaborate altars, when you get closer to Arkenspire, where the first altar appeared, there's going to be ones that take on very specific forms based on what rune they're associated with. That's why we have specific sculpts for those. So there's thematic reason behind it, but it's mostly like Adam said. For lack of a better word, it's like the generic altar that the appearance is based on. So that's why it's like that.
Any troll slayer type hero? How about a wolf slayer? We definitely have something like that.
Yeah, we try, like we keep saying, we try not to dip too much into other IP influences because those are like a troll slayer is very iconic to Warhammer, so I wouldn't want to encroach on that kind of iconography. That's just so.
If you just mean dwarf in general,
if you mean like a savage dwarf, then yeah, we got plenty. But
Good to see you. Good to see you too. Any plans for the future with novels, RPG, comics?
I would love to do the novel. I started the prologue and I've got the outline for most of the book. It's just a matter of writing it, and I have another book I started also. So between that and the game design, it's hard to give it enough attention. But I would, depending if this does well enough and there's demand for it, I would love to just hammer that novel out in the next year or so.
Yeah, I'd love to have a HBO Netflix miniseries. Let's set that up. Do you work there, Dr. Man?
Yeah, we finish the book first.
What is a poxoid? Where did you hear that? Where did you hear poxoid?
So I have to answer it because it came up. So we won't show anything. But in Runa, the world, poxoid is a term given to these kind of unnatural abominations. They for us they look like giant possum men essentially. They're kind of just these
Gross.
dwellers of refuge. They dwell in refuge and they carry crazy diseases. And it's no one knows if they create these diseases or biological weapons themselves, or they're being supplied them somehow. But they mutate their own kind with it. So there's giant poxoids running around, and there's no real.
I'm curious. When did we say that?
I don't know.
Did we leak that out somewhere ourselves, or did somebody get a hold of our file?
Oh no, no. It's mentioned in the intro.
Oh, is it
The
okay?
intro text? Yeah. So the name has been out there, but yeah. So poxoids are gross. They're just disgusting, plague.
Nurgle possum, yeah.
Giant possum men. Yeah.
Nurgle possum is a good way to
Nurgle
think about
possum.
it. We'll be doing another run of Street Masters.
That's what's getting printed. So.
I mean, oh, you mean like a print run, or does okay, I thought for some reason I thought he was talking about a playthrough or something. Yes, Street Masters is printing now from after the Aftershock campaign wrapped up. We sent the files to the printer, and it is being manufactured currently. Silly man thing. Poxoids don't exist. That's right. It's just
right.
It's just a rumor.
Keep repeating that. Keep telling yourself that.
Don't work there, but with Game of Thrones ended, there's a void of fantasy. That's true. No more fantasy on TV. Is the superhero MDS definitely your next game? Have you playtested anything? It is what Brady really wants to do next.
I wouldn't say it's our next game because we can't predict other projects that we've done where those will fall in other publishers' lines. But MDS. They said MDS, not just our game. Oh, so MDS. It's looking very likely. We haven't started obviously we're buried in art for this right now, so none of the production stuff has started. I just have pretty much notes together.
We still have lots of playtesting to do.
Yeah, we're going to be devoted pretty much all summer to this game. We want to make sure it's perfect when it goes out. So
I mean, if this Kickstarter does as well as we hope, and this opens up some people that want to start, localizing our games in different countries, stuff like that. We want to make sure that Alter Quest is as perfect as we've ever done a board game. So we're gonna spend a lot of time on this one. Make sure it's awesome before we move on to the next game.
So Mark asks,
some of the mini traps features seem very intricate. How will they stand up to use?
If you've seen any of our other plastics, I mean,
I don't know if he probably means the muck stakes. Maybe I don't know what else.
I think it just means the materials, because the banner of Morn is a flag, but I mean, we had for example in Street Masters we had a character who had a bow staff that was sticking out really long, and usually you see some companies put out miniatures when the staves are kind of droopy and they're all bent. I didn't see that. I mean, there was isolated instance where that occurred, but I had 6 copies sent to me and none of them had. So we're pretty confident they'll be pretty sturdy. So I doubt there'll be a problem with that. Any info on the super secret license? The licensed game, I think I've already dropped way too many hints on, so if people haven't guessed it, I don't know what else to do, but I'm afraid I'm going to get in trouble with the publisher and the licensee, so the licensor. I had a halfling bard who used druidic type magic, but how about a dancing sword the bard can have that can fight independently of the bard? Yeah, I mean, we mentioned before we have a couple heroes that kind of have the familiars, have separate entities that fight with them, so it's totally feasible within the system.
Superheroes with MDS. Love superheroes, but really think MDS would be great for mechs. Different components.
Oh yeah,
we want to do MDS with all kinds of stuff, so we're never limiting ourselves to just.
Yeah, I have a strong concept for the IP we want for the vehicular combat game, which is kind of includes mechs also. But all it is just a matter of scheduling. I mean, it's going to happen. We're going to do it. It's just a matter of when it falls, in what order,
Do you plan to have canine companion allies?
What was
maybe. Maybe it's very very possible, something along those lines. You guys are doing an amazing job here, and this is what Massive Darkness should have been. Yeah, I was kind of disappointed with Massive Darkness myself. I had high hopes for that. It was like a cool game, but I have it in a box. I've only played it once.
What's the biggest challenge for you to overcome as creators? For me personally, it's focusing on the project at hand because we've had this started for months now, and we've been developing it and playtesting it. And while it's great and we're happy with what we're doing, I'm always like halfway into the next project, trying to think like what I want to do with the next thing. So I'm trying to keep things narrowed in because my vision gets kind of wide sometimes. So trying to stay focused on this. That's not just for this game. That's pretty much every product we've done. I'm always thinking ahead, a little too far ahead sometimes. So trying to stay in the present is pretty challenging for me.
Do you guys do this full time? Is this your only source of income? If so, I'm so jealous. Well, it is. We are doing it full time now, which we just started doing it full time in February, I think it was.
It's a long road.
But we've been
a long road.
We worked at Fantasy Flight Games back in 2000. Like I started there in 2010. I think that's where you started, right? 2010. Yeah. We worked there for a couple of years. After we left, we just worked corporate jobs for bigger companies for bigger paychecks. We did freelancing on the side. We've been freelancing game design since probably 2014 or 15. And through that time, we've been working with Blacklist and building up a nice little portfolio of games that people seem to like. And that led to Blacklist wanting to hire us full time to do a lot more games. So it's been adjustment for us to shift to doing full time stuff on our own, work from home, running a small publishing company with a small team. But it's exciting, and this Kickstarter is proof that maybe we can keep doing it. So
yeah, I'll preface by saying there's nothing else I want to do. Like there's nothing else I would want to do for a living. But at the same time, everything comes with the challenges. Like, and one of the main challenges doing this full time, it's like no longer an escape. Where before we'd have our day jobs and we're like, oh, I can't wait to go work on Street Masters, So it's like kind of a change of pace. But now it's like not just just designing Street Masters, it's like talking to our production contact at the factory and communicating challenges with the factory and making sure things hit deadlines. So it's like being involved in that whole process. It's kind of removing that escapism that it had before, which I wouldn't trade. It's just it's a different challenge. So yeah, it's hard to complain, but at the same time, there's it's still work,
Hi guys, I was halfway through a Street Masters battle when I realized you were live.
Go back and play that. It's more fun. Yeah, I don't want to watch us talk. Go play some Street Masters, man.
Seeing all the games behind you, that could be my bookshelf. You guys have great taste in games. Thanks. Yeah, my collection has cycled out through so much through the years that sometimes I don't even know what games I have anymore. But the games in the middle here, my Games Workshop collection, that's where I keep like my treasures that I can't part with, because I usually paint all those miniatures and stuff. So thank you. Who are you playing, Baz? Solo, me versus the Brotherhood. Who's the best in the game? Baz, who's the best in the game? Did he
Reese.
say?
He said Reese, obviously.
Where?
No, I'm just saying. That's who the best in the game is. So. Or maybe Natalia.
We can't do we don't want to do tons of add-ons because we don't know how many people are going to buy. Like if we put up a blue hero dice option and 2 people buy it, it's Blacklist is losing money. Because
and it also creates more of an expense on the customer end too, because it's more, there's just more SKUs and everything, and it's just easier, I think, all around if we just had it be the iconic Ultra Quest color.
Are the dice laser engraved? Those always look nicer and last longer. Yes, they are engraved dice. They are definitely going to, those symbols are going to last. He can multitask. Yeah, he can multitask. Yeah. I need to play some Age of Sigmar. Yeah, me too. Oh, I need to play with King Bread. You need to finish painting your gobbies. Axel and Reese. Nice. No chance for colored altar dice, right? Too expensive. I wouldn't say no chance. I would say that I wanted that, but it's definitely more expensive, and it's going to affect the budget quite a bit. But it's not out of the question of as a stretch goal, later on, maybe we just upgrade the altar dice. It's a possibility. Obviously we're prioritizing, content, more content for people. So it's, if it's something that you want, feel free to let Blacklist know if it's a big thing for you. Me, as I was playing more, the altar dice stand out so much as white symbols on those dark dice that I don't really notice that if they're colored or not. So I mean, it might be like a premium option, but I think they play just fine and they look cool. Just want to say thank you. Board games saved my life from addiction. Since your last 2 games are on the top 5, I'd say you're impacting my life in very positive ways. Your work is more than the game. That means a lot. Thank you very much. We do this for fun, but it is really awesome to hear that it has a more meaningful impact on people's lives than just a way to kill time. That's great. Anything you can do to find ways to entertain yourself in a healthy way, great. And I'm glad that board games are an option for you there because, well, there's lots of reasons why we do this, but we do it because we enjoy it, and we just hope that lots of people out there also enjoy the kind of games we want to make, because we got plenty more ideas that we could dish out. So great to hear.
I like the pigmen who created them. I mean,
The guys who made Zelda.
well,
They weren't entirely based off of. I mean, I did like that as a kid. I liked the idea of giant pigs with spears, but yeah, I as much as I like a lot of tropes, I don't necessarily like a lot of the regular enemies like goblins and orcs. And I mean, they're obviously inspired slightly by goblins, and the raglins are goblins, and the ragocs are more like orcs. But I thought the whole pig nasty eating whatever they find aspect was just really cool, and the feeding troughs were hilarious, and it's a good mix. It's like someone said it was silly, but I don't really find it silly. It's kind of creepy in a way. It's like these scary cannibalistic pig men, but at the same time it is kind of cool and a little fun. So yeah.
I think that the only thing that most of the races in the game Brady thought up. I think the only one that I pushed for was frogmen. I definitely wanted those early, like a long time ago. Like, we should do frogmen. I forget why. And then there's one that I can't talk about yet because nobody's seen it. It'd be nice for a final goal when you don't want to start a new expansion. Yeah, that's a good point. Like, if we hit all of our goals and we start doing new things that don't require new development, like, yeah, alter dice would be a great one. Like, if we are up in the millions, like, let's do some new alter dice. Great.
So Christian asked, we answered this earlier, but double-sided boards, we don't like the aspect of damaging one side of a board because
For folding boards are different than like map tiles that just flip them over upside down. But with a folding board, you got moving parts. When you have art on one side, it's always, every time I've seen a double-sided board, the folding areas, the art gets all scuffed up on, and honestly, I don't think it's worth the possible damage and the trouble of having a double-sided board when we would much rather just do new boards. So if like we have a stretch goal, it's a new board. It's just a new board. We'll throw it in your stretch goal box, and it's an alternate board for you. So you can use this one or this one. As far as encounter tiles, though, the ones that in the Runes of Arkenspire box, those are just double-sided tiles like Street Masters. So, what was it? Where were features like a lever? Little things like that are usually going to be on quest cards. Things that are probably too small to actually have take up a space on the board. But that being said, like there could definitely be like a faction in the future that has like big old levers that do things that are like traps or something. You have to go to this lever to turn it off or something. That's definitely a possibility. But little things that would go on a wall or that would actually be a wall, we haven't planned for anything like that yet. So. Just wondered if you could explain how the campaign progression, story progression work. Also, some introduction. We'll be seeing undead stuff. I love my undead. I do like your minions. So, the Arkenspire expansion is definitely have that undead feel to it. If you like undead stuff, that's your box right there. As far as campaign progression, you kind of covered that quite a bit early on, right?
Yeah. You can either go back and
I would say he talked for quite a while, so I would definitely go back and, when this is posted, rewatch that part of it.
We try to keep it simple. It's more just giving you there's more tools as you go.
Yeah, there's 2 main modes of play. There's the campaign mode where you just can link together any quests you want to build your own campaign and upgrade in between. And then there's the story mode where it's a structured narrative that you kind of read through the story and play the quests as they present it to you.
So Dr. Manage
It's
asked,
Cat Girls, isn't it, Adam?
so Dr. Manage asked, I think you said a while back you were banning the Vixen enemies. Did you get... So that was unfortunate, yeah, because I mean, I didn't take the connotations all into mind when I thought of this, because I understand the problems, because Vixen is a kind of a strange word to use, but I love the concept of like a werefox, and I wanted to have like female werefoxes and call them Vixens. But it does kind of have the suggestive aspect to it, like sexually suggestive, and I don't want to mess with that, even though as much as I love the idea of a fox. So they were kind of just transformed into just standard werewolves, because even though we try to make, you know, flip tropes around, I think like just werewolves kind of belong in this gothic horror setting. We have vampires, so some of the tropes kind of just are going to be there. So that's what the Vixens kind of became. Just to avoid any problem. I don't want to have everybody arguing about stupid stuff when really it doesn't matter to me. It's mostly just we wanted to have werewolf style creatures in there. So,
how does the board in the box compare to the neoprene noises? I'm assuming that's a typo. Neoprene version as an add-on. The box one doesn't fold. The box one is a folding board. The board that comes in the base game, it's a 6 folding board like Brook City, or games you might have heard like Eldritch Horror. Arkham Horror, for example, is a 6-panel folding board. Neoprene mat obviously is just a neoprene mat you can roll up.
So what do you think about mixing the different trap cards from threat deck to threat deck? So the problem with that is you can't do it, because threats are very specifically designed to function with threat tokens that interact with that threat deck in a certain way. An example of that is the Frox, for example. So the Frox threat tokens represent like muck they throw at you and they poison you with. So anytime you get wounded, you'll have a gross wound that takes longer to heal. So the muck stakes actually inflict those threat tokens on you. Now, if you actually replace that with, let's say, the feeding trough from the Raglans, the feeding trough gives threat tokens to enemies, because that represents the stench they're carrying. They're like eating this garbage, and it represents them just smelling terrible and hurting you, so they're harder to hit. So it wouldn't make thematic sense to give Frox poison because they have the troughs in their deck. So there's no mixing and matching. These are fixed decks for a reason. But I mean, as far as like miniatures go, you can use whatever miniatures you want as long as you know what they are. But yeah, you wouldn't mix the cards in, because they're all the decks are designed to be interacting with the cards in the deck.
I have to leave. See you, Inigo.
Thanks for hanging out.
Chance of a poster or printout of the world map.
We mentioned that if it gets requested. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. We're gonna have it in the base game. It's gonna be probably like a fold out in the book with a description of the world and stuff. But if people really
that might be
want
a cool. Also, like if we hit all our stretch goals, or
maybe a social. Would that be a social goal? Or is that too expensive for social goal?
I don't know. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
It could be something where it's just something we throw in the stretch goal box, and here's a poster mat.
The Goatman, Otterman, Succubus, the Blessed Trio.
I love the big chunky features we've been seeing so far. Are more coming? Yes. Features are definitely planned. For every expansion we do in the game, we want to add more features. There are 2 more in the Ruins of Arcspire box, and we've unlocked 1 in the stretch goals, and I can only imagine there are more. Sharkman.
Still one of my favorite games, obviously. So
Take it easy. Hope you all don't get too stressful.
yeah, trying not to.
One of Nights is a heck of a deal for 126 minis. How hard is it to project what would be able to fit in the box? So the nice thing is all the stretch goals are going to be going in a stretch goal box. So the base game, the pledge graphic you see in the quest tier of the base game content, that's all going in the base game box. Then the Call of the Lunarian, and all the stretch goals are going to be going into a stretch goal box. That's going to be a Kickstarter stretch goal box. That way we can design that according to how much content is unlocked.
So Crimson Sun asked, and this is a fair question, I see you have 2 projects currently awaiting delivery, and you were able to commit to a 3rd project with so much work under production. So I'm not sure if you mean Brook City, because there are some international orders that are still waiting, but like the majority of backers have gotten that. So that's, I mean, we can't consider it shipped, but it's essentially been fulfilled. It's just there's international issues with some of the fulfillment.
And as designers, we've been sitting on our hands really.
Yeah, I mean,
for like a
we
month.
can't. I mean, once we hand off stuff to the factory, we cannot do anything else. Like we have to move forward. We have to plan the next project, and the company to exist has to fit into a cycle. And if we have to, and since games take like 6 to 8 months to kind of get from concept to not just a concept to the factory, but then from the factory to the States, we have to stay on target and stay on schedule. So we have to launch at a certain time to fit within that
because we want
schedule.
We want Alter Quest to release at a certain point, and it's like we need to make sure that
we'd love to have it hit like end of year, early next year, obviously. So, so yeah, we actually aren't doing any work on, like, for example, Aftershock. We're answering questions for the factory, we're communicating and stuff like that, but they're doing the work on that. All we're doing is waiting for that to be complete so we can move it along.
And there's someone else at Blacklist, the owner, who deals with the factory and the production side of things. So
we're not publishers. We're designers. Yeah. We're hired as designers.
We are the first official employees of this publisher, but our focus is game design, and we focus purely on game design. So we communicate with the factory when needed about gameplay things, but we're not involved in like shipping at all. We're not involved in the customer service side of things. We just design games, help them get made, and answer rules questions, things like that, and then we move on to the next game. So that's kind of what we're involved with. But also Blacklist is also kind of hands off now because Aftershock is at the printer, and so we're basically just waiting on that to ship, and so we have the time to move on to the next thing and get it running.
I'm glad Cubic asked this. How does setup work? And I had a friend coming over, and I don't want to show him a campaign quest. So this is the beauty of the MDS. First off, there's no campaign quests. Those are totally just separate. I mean, you still use the same decks, but they're just it's layered on top of the normal game. You have a friend coming over, you choose the decks you want, plop them down, go. So you don't have to have special rules to exclude certain content from a campaign or whatever. You don't have to have all these exceptions. That's the beauty of this system, the modularity, because you just choose the decks you want and play a game. That's the way the system is designed. Everything else is layered on top of that. So if you want to play a campaign, you bring your story guide over, you take your story deck, and that'll modify what decks you combine to do things. You'll always have your chosen hero, but depending on like what quest you're playing, what enemy you're facing, what threats are going to be out there, that's all going to be dictated by the story you're playing. But if you're just playing a one-off and want to enjoy an evening game, just choose whatever decks you like, set them up and play. That's why we design games like this, because they're so much easier to break out. Do you guys have games with your wives? Are they adding anything to Alter Quest? So my gaming habits with my wife have dropped significantly since I started doing this full time, and since we've had our second kid. So my wife loves thinky games, like Euro games. So she's not always in the mood after work, 'cause she's a medical editor. So she's not always in the mood to game after work. And we get the kids to bed and everything. When we do game, it's stuff we had a long habit of playing Lord of the Rings LCG. She loved playing that, so that was our go-to game together. We also love games like Viticulture. She loves that game, and Orleans. So she does game, but it's kind of more selective now. And I'm sure as our son gets older, Oliver, he's still 3 and kind of a troublesome kid. So once he's older, I'm sure we might get the energy back to game some more in the evenings. But I'm also working a lot in the evenings now on stuff, so it doesn't work out as much.
My fiance is actually in our game group, so we usually play weekly or bi-weekly game night, and we play at my house usually, and so she plays with us typically whatever. I think we're doing a lot of role-playing games lately. So issues with manufacturers being able to make our pieces the way we want them. Have you ever had the issue, and who would you suggest? Yes, but I haven't actually communicated with a factory myself since my days at FFG when I was a producer there. Ever since I started doing the design side of things, I've stayed out of that side as much as I can, because it is a lot of work. Anybody who's had to do project management for making games knows how many moving pieces there are and getting those things done. Now, anytime a major issue comes up, Blacklist will come to us and we'll work it out, but we're usually working with Blacklist, then they're working with the factory. So that's pretty much, we're a little limited in that knowledge, and we don't really know the best places to recommend for factories and manufacturers and stuff like that, because we like to focus in on the design side of things.
So Mark asks, what's the learning difficulty compared to a simpler game like Hero Quest? What's that? Loved Hero Quest, but not experienced the newer dungeon games. So the beauty of the MDS is the rule set. While there are some exceptions to how cards interact with each other, the rules are usually a little bit on the lighter side. Almost everything comes in through the card play, so like you'll just do what the card says. There are some rules that govern what those card effects do, But I'd argue that if we all goes well and our rule book is as clear as it's intended to be, you should be able to learn this game a lot easier than most dungeon crawls because you're not going to do a whole lot of rules referencing. Once you know how the system works and you know what keywords do and everything, you might check once in a while to make sure you're doing it right. But the cards are going to guide you a lot of the way. That being said, this is much more complex in a game like Hero Quest because most games are nowadays. This is not a lighter dungeon crawl at all. But I think that it's more rewarding from the card play, and I think it's easier to follow if you follow the cards and you keep your cards in order and everything. It's much more visual. So I think it falls in the middle of learning because it's a little more complex than Hero Quest, but it's not as rules heavy as a lot of other dungeon crawlers with all those exceptions and all those like scenario guides that change the basic rules that you have to remember. So I think it falls like in between. I could be wrong, but in a podcast I've heard a rule that when you spend a focus you have to draw a card from the lurker deck, but I couldn't find it. That might have been an effect. Where
I don't
it says
know if
it
that
might
was a
say
specific effect.
yeah, it probably would have been an effect where it's like discard a focus or draw a lurker. That's just a card effect, not like a standard rule. Spending focus.
That kind of goes along with what he just said.
Yeah.
Like, there's not like try to have as few like standard rules all the time because that way the cards can just have these changing the rules or giving you options to do things.
What's the Aftershock big box status? This guy asked last time. It's good. I mean, we're just waiting production right now. The final sample got sent to our manager and it got approved. Saw pictures of it. Looked fantastic. So as far as we know, it's just getting printed now and constructed and everything. So things are moving moving along.
I think we're gonna have some pictures in the next update of the Aftershock box. So fingers crossed we have some pictures to show everybody.
So what about Tariff Wars right now? Is that something Blacklist should answer? I'm in UK, but it's worth being aware of. So we talked about this earlier. We're in constant communication with our manager who handles all of the business aspect, the back end stuff. And I was getting nervous when I first heard about this whole tariff thing because I saw a bunch of other publishers talking about it. From our understanding, at least at this point right now,
he did talk to the factory about
Yeah,
this as well.
yeah,
I guess meetings with it just to confirm because just so people know, there's no reason. Blacklist has no desire to get into a situation where they're going to lose money or make people like not get their games. Like that's just the worst possible thing that could happen. So
yeah, we're like
super careful about that.
We're very much on the same side as our consumers because whatever bad would happen to the consumers is bad for us. So we're watching out for all of our interests. That being said, from our understanding, from our discussions, our position in the industry is kind of fortunate where we're not going to be hit very hard. This is something that's going to be more impactful on some of the more established publishers to go through some of the standard channels. We're small enough and independent enough where right now, if things were to, if things were to go into effect, I think the most we would see is some more costs on the shipping end, which shouldn't be significant, I wouldn't think, from the U.S. side. But it's something that we're always going to be open with as we hear more. But I made sure, just for my own peace of mind, that it wasn't something that we should be scared of. And from my understanding, it's not. It's more just we're going to stay ahead of it and make sure we know the situation. But you'll know
through the map board, pretty amazing. So a lot of interior art is.
I'm gonna block old man Bob.
I don't even know what it is, so don't worry.
I'm blocking it because it's rude. So don't come in asking rude questions. You'll get blocked.
I don't. The artists that do the interior art is a studio, but the block. Anyway, artists. The artist who did the board is Henning. Henning Ludvigsen did the board art, and he's done the board art for Brook City as well. And we really like his work. He's does some of the best map art I've ever seen. So that's Henning.
Yeah, it is. I see some unfortunate occurrences on YouTube. It's like you got like super nice guys like Rodney Smith doing videos, and then people come in and say rude stuff. It's pretty awful.
I thought you blocked it.
I did. It's on my end though, so I reported it. But if I can't do it on my, so you guys will have to block him yourself. But yeah, just ignore nonsense. You already answered the art thing, right?
Yeah. We have an art studio that does several different artists work on the interior art, but Henning was the artist who did the map board. the board art. Cool. So
Well,
I think we should probably wrap up there. We
Yes.
are more than happy to do these as needed, just to kind of, as more people find the campaign and have lots of questions, it's sometimes more effective to just engage in some back and forth questions and answers to get things answered quickly. But new backers are coming in, they're going to ask some similar questions, so maybe you guys could help, respond, help answer questions for people that come in that might have them. You guys have a lot more information now. And thanks for joining us. If you have any questions, we'll be back in the Kickstarter comments most of the day, back and forth as we take care of other things. But yeah, progress is going well. We're getting close to the next stretch goal. We're up to 207,000 right now. So I'm personally excited for 250,000. So let's get there. Let's get 250,000 in the next couple days because I'm excited about that.
thanks everybody.
Yeah.
Appreciate all the birthday wishes and everything. Hope everyone has a great rest of the day, rest of the evening, wherever you are.
Thank you.